Welcome, everyone, to the Two Brothers Fishing Podcast here on the Fishing with Gramps YouTube channel, presented by American Legacy Fishing. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, before we get to tonight's special guest, who, needs no introduction, let me take a moment to tell everyone that this is the time to join the American Legacy Fishing Elite Program. $50 to sign up for your first year. You get 25 back in legacy rewards. 10% back on all orders in Legacy Rewards, free shipping, and access to the exclusive Facebook group and sales. American Legacy Fishing also has the best trade-in program there is and the most extensive collection of used gear you can find online. I've told the story many times about my favorite Shimano Stratic CI4 that I got it, like 60% off of retail, and the thing looked brand new, even though they said it was used. Don't forget, if you're in the Evansville, Indiana area, you can stop by and check out the newly remodeled showroom. And before I forget, February 10th, yes, we will be down at American Legacy Fishing because Daiwa Pro Brent Ayler will be there answering questions and giving some seminars. So be sure to join us February 10th at American Legacy Fishing in Evansville, Indiana. Now, one more before I get to our special guest. Everybody's been wondering what's going on with my channel, and I finally got an answer back from YouTube, and it goes something like this. Apparently, some folks out there were stealing people's content, downloading it, and then putting it up on a YouTube channel as if it was their own material. So they didn't tell me who. I'm guessing it's just, they were looking for different YouTubers with fishing content, and they were just posting it up as if it was like some free-for-all catalog. YouTube noticed that it matched my content, and it locked out both channels. What they ended up requiring me to do was film a video showing basically me, my studio, how I edit, my camera gear, my editing gear, the scripts that I do for when I come up with my videos. Basically, I had to prove that I was fishing with Gramps, not Hickman Outdoors, but fishing with Gramps. That's why the channel has been reverted back to Fishing with Gramps. It's going to be this channel is going to stay as Fishing with Gramps because that's what it started out as. It's going to be all your fishing tips, tricks, reviews, how-tos, me and Jeremy making baits with do-it molds and all the stuff that we do. Our actual on the water and in the woods future outdoors content that we're going to be shooting with Matt over here. It's going to be all the outdoors. We're basically going to make like a 30-minute not streaming, but like a TV show. It's going to be just our adventures as Hickman Outdoors, basically Freedom Squad on the road, and all of the on the water and in the woods content will go over on Hickman Outdoors. So all the talking about fishing stuff is going to stay right here. Our live streams will stay here and all that. If you're listening in on the Two Brothers Fishing podcast, hey, nothing really changes. It's the same crazy folks doing the same crazy stuff. With all that said, let me introduce and welcome back Mr. OEF5 as our guest host tonight, since Jeremy is still running out of internet and he's going to be upgrading his plan in his new house, but he's still back and forth between his two different places. And of course, with us is the myth, the legend, one of our favorite bass pros, Mr. Rus Snyders.
He's not real.
Yes. Good to be here.
Russ, how you doing tonight, brother?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, man. I hit you up before the first big tournament of the year, and man, how about that day one with the Hobie BOS?
Unreal. I had a feeling it was going to happen with that weather we had. I got up there the weekend before and saw it was cold then, and with those forecasts getting up in the 80s, coinciding with that full moon, it was like, oh my God, there's going to be magic happening.
Well, before we get to that event, let's back up a little bit because, from the end of the last season when we saw you last up to now, you've kind of had some major changes in the little piece of plastic that you spend all of your time in the water on. Tell us, a little about your former, and then, who you ended up with and how, and then we're going to talk about some of the latest and greatest, what I think in, kayak fishing kayaks that we have available to us now. So give us a little bit of how it went over the winter time and then how you ended up where you're at now.
Yeah, at the end of the year last year, I signed on with Bonafide Kayaks. I've been with Wilderness Systems for 7 years, or we've been using their kayak for 7 years with them for about 3, and really grateful for everything they've done for me. And Attack was, it's a great kayak, treated me really good. And but with that new PWR that I was hearing rumors about it coming out, and when it finally did, that was definitely, I felt like good reason for me to jump in that kayak. It just it's it's really similar to the Attack, but just has a lot more features and capacity to have hold more storage and have bigger fish finders on it. I have a 10-inch Garmin and a 10-inch Humminbird Helix on it, and they put a lot of thought, research, and development over. I talked to Hans, and he said it was over 2 years that they spend, and they pick the brains of a lot of different pros, and got a lot of feedback, and you can really tell, that they made the best product available based on that feedback that they got. And it's an incredible kayak. It really is. I couldn't be more happy with it, and luckily it looks like it has some good mojo, because first tournament of the year with it, I did pretty well. I was happy with my finish.
Yeah. So I have to say, as guy who's been fishing out of an Old Town for the last several years, I one of the reasons why I went through kind of their class of kayaks is I think, at the time, like the Autopilot 120 was the most technically advanced, as far as having the built-in trolling motor and all that too. People can argue, the Hobie 360 with their drives, and, kayak companies really, putting them out some kayaks that kind of changed the game. But one of the things I noticed is even those two companies have kind of been a little bit stale, maybe in updating, maybe some changes on colors and whatnot. And I noticed at ICAST last year, the first one that caught my eye was the new Native Titan X. And, really, it's like, okay, here's a company that's really listening to the feedback from their customers and building actual fishing kayaks. And I literally thought that would be the biggest selling kayak this year.
I did too. I really do. I'd be
Until
shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, until
the Titan
Bonafide
X,
dropped
you're saying.
that PWR,
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah. I was going to say the PWR, I'd be shocked if it wasn't the number one selling kayak this year, just because of the price point too.
yeah,
It's one of those kayaks where, you can just buy it right off the shelf and have a great paddling kayak that has a built-in rudder, which is hard to find. A built-in rudder with foot steering, just plug and play. You buy it, you're good to go. You can have, and if you're not going to put a motor and you're not going to have a pedal drive, the most important thing if you're going to be paddling a kayak is having something with a rudder with foot steering, where you can control which direction you're going. And it's all rigged up, ready to go. It's $1,900, and for that price point, it's I don't think there's anything out there that can really compete with a pedaling kayak. And then the great thing about it is it has all of the capability to build it out to whatever your imagination can create, really, whether you want to put a bow mount motor, a stern mount motor, mount 2 graphs, and have 2 black packs, and it's still a small, compact, relative, not small, but it's it's less than 13 feet, I think 12'9", which isn't a giant platform really, but for a boat that size, what it's capable of is really impressive. Like I said, I have 2 of the Yak Attack black packs on there. So I have double the amount of storage. The front hatch can be utilized really well, especially with some of the accessories that One Objective has come out with. I just signed on with them, and they have a bunch of aftermarket stuff as far as motor mounts for the front and the back. I have a bracket that goes right across the front there, where you can mount hard mount up to 2 10-inch graphs. And I love how low it sits. So many of the kayaks that I've seen that have those tracks, the track or the mounting system that goes all the way across, they sit up so high, and I don't like that. I like it everything as low as possible, just so I can get under bridges and get under culverts, and most of all have something where it's not gonna compromise my casting. You have something sitting up really high, and you're having to work around that. And with how low that mount sits, it really doesn't compromise your casting at all. So
Nice.
Now, we were talking a couple of months ago, and you were telling me, when you're on your way up there, that you were picking up 4 different, boats. Kind of tell us what you went with, and because I know with a guy like you who travels around the country doing the various tournament trails, a lot of times you need to build a specific boat for kind of the situation. And I
yeah,
guess some of that situation might have changed now with some rule changes, but kind of tell everybody what you got, what your
exactly.
plans were,
Yeah.
and then maybe what they'd be going forward.
Yeah, so what I picked up one of the new PWRs. I got 2 of the RVRs, which are made for river kayak. They're 11-foot kayaks made for fishing rivers. They have a kind of a built-in system that allows you to have a anchor wizard with whether you're using an anchor or drag chain is what I like using. I still
Okay.
haven't set those kayaks up. Yeah, that's my next project. I'll have to probably get on pretty soon. It took me a while to work on that PWR to get everything just right. But so I got 2 of those RVRs. I'm gonna do some guiding right now, and at some point I'm planning. I keep saying I'm gonna plan on transitioning more into guiding with all the rivers and stuff that I have around here. That's something that I want to focus on. And I also have one of the P127 pedal drive kayaks, which I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it unless I, need to get a little exercise or something like that. I don't know if there's a place for it now. The reason I got it is because of the Hobie tournaments didn't allow motors, so I wanted a pedal drive tournament for those tournaments didn't allow motors, but now I think just about, at least all the main circuits allow motors. There might be some clubs and stuff like that that don't. And there are 2 Hobie events actually, Norman and Wright Patman, that aren't going to allow motors. But I don't think I'm planning on doing. Those are the 2 that I'm probably not going to do. Maybe I will. I don't know. Plans may change, but yeah, I got a P127 too, which is also a great pedal drive kayak. If you don't want to go the route of buying a Torpedo or a motor on a kayak, that's a great alternative too for a lot of people. Still love pedal drives, so that's a great pedal drive kayak.
So I got a question about your RVRs. All right.
Sure.
So most of us know that you really are a river guy. That's like you guide on rivers. At the national championship where I actually met you in, at Kentucky Lake, you won in the river, right?
Yes.
With the RVRs, and you said you haven't got them rigged up yet. Have you used one yet? And is it really that good in the river?
I haven't used one in a river. I've used one in a lake when I was doing my ACA paddle certification in Georgia with Drew Gregory and Jeff Little. Who was it that had one? Somebody up there. I can't remember who. Maybe it was Wade from Acatech, I think, brought one. But I jumped in one and paddled it around and really liked it. I could see how it was really well thought out for river fishing. And the thing that sets apart a river kayak from, I guess you could say, a lake kayak is just having something that can be maneuverable to go through rapids. That's going to be able to turn really well. My attack or the PWR really is a boat that tracks really straight, but that's not necessary, which is a great thing. But the thing is it's not necessarily a great thing. You can get by with boats like that, kayaks like that in rivers. But especially if you have rivers that have little rapids or shoals and stuff like that, you want something that's going to be able to turn well. A good example of a river kayak would be like a Jackson Coosa HD is really designed. That was one of the original, quote unquote river kayaks that a lot of people used. And it was extremely maneuverable where you can take, but along with that, when you have something that takes turns really well, it's not going to track well. So when you paddle it, the nose is actually going to, as you do paddle strokes, you go like each time you do a paddle stroke, it's going to kind of walk back and forth. And it's going to be pretty tippy. That Jackson Coosa HD is a pretty tippy kayak. It's extremely maneuverable, but pretty tippy. Where the RVR is really kind of right in between, which is what I would want. Something that is still going to track okay, and it's not going to walk a bunch as you're paddling it, but it's still is a maneuverable kayak where you can turn it pretty well. So it's kind of right in between, I'd say, like my old Attack and the Kusa HD. It's still stable enough to stand on, where Kusa HD maybe you can't, and it's not as stable as maybe an Attack, but it's right where I'd really want it to be. So I haven't tested it out in a river yet, but from the little bit that I got in it, I was like, this feels right to me anyways. Just as I was on the lake paddling it around, it felt good.
Yeah.
So you are one of the first to use a PWR. Were there any other PWRs on the BOS tournament, or were you the only one?
Was it Matt Ball or Jody Queen that had one?
I don't think Jody did. Is he with Bonafide now again?
So they're both. I think they're both with Fish USA, and I think Jody went from his Jackson. I hope I'm right. It
Matt
was either
Ball
Jody
is
or
with Jackson, isn't he?
he was, but I think it's based on now with what he's getting from his primary sponsor was Fish USA. But
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Matt Ball that has a PWR that he had rigged out and took out as well.
I didn't know that. Did he have it? He must have had it with the Torpedo then, huh?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So you used the PWR, finished third in this tournament. How was it fishing out of? Because I got a chance to see Gene's at the Challenge Series because he had it on his trailer, and that was one of the prototype boats. It looks phenomenal. Like the space, the amount of room in where your feet and legs go. Because I fish out of a RS 117, and I told you earlier, I'm 6'4", and I had to take the pedals out to be able to have room for my legs. Now it's a small boat, but I love it.
It's a small boat. Know what it reminds this? I kind of had this analogy when I was talking to a friend. It's almost like kayaks are like the same evolution of like, all these people like living in their vans and stuff like that, where they try to like maximize, the first people just living in a van and put a bed in there or whatever. And as it evolved, everybody, they really, with those vans, they just like maximized every little inch of space to be just extremely thought out and efficient, and just all the little details. You're just maximizing the efficiency of every inch of space that you have. And that's what I really feel like they did with this kayak. It's not a big, it's under 13 feet long, but it feels the amount that you can do with it and the amount that you can carry and everything that you can do from just the front bow hatch. I have in the front bow hatch, there's a couple plates that One Objective makes where I can mount on my black box. So I should start. I have two, like I said, two graphs, a 10-inch Helix and a 10-inch Garmin. I have live scope. So I have my black box mounted in the front hatch there on one of the plates. Then I have two Dakota lithium batteries, a 54 amp hour and a 46 amp hour. And I carry my spare Torpedo battery in that front hatch. And I have on the top lid, I put a tackle web that I put in there that has like my nav lights, Gorilla Glue, WD-40, my registration, and I also have a dry bag in there as well with just other little tools, toilet paper, sunscreen, and sunglasses, and everything like that. So I got a lot of stuff in that front hatch. It sounds like it is. I mean, it's a lot of weight, but they designed the kayak to handle a lot of weight in the front just with that high bow. It's kind of low on the sides, which is nice because you can still reach down and land your fish easy. It doesn't have high sides, but as it gets close to the front, it comes up, which is it's really nice. It's designed for putting a big, bow mount trolling motor up front and batteries, and it's made for a lot of weight in the front. Which is good,
when you see like Gene and Alix, have the motor on the back and then the trolling motor on the front, it's like, man, and then all of their fishing gear as well. It's amazing what kind of capacity the thing has, and it's still able to move in the water really well.
Yeah,
Gene doesn't take any fishing gear with him. Like he is the least. He has the least amount of rods. I'm kidding.
Gear.
He's got like 13 rods. So when he says, so what I noticed was that just in the footwell area, it looked like it is like 6 inches wider than a 127, but it's not.
I've been in a 127. It's been a while, but that's what I heard too. It's like the width of it isn't much wider than a
But
127,
it looks
but it's the
huge.
footwell, like the overall width is about the same, but they maximize the
Yeah.
footwell area as much
Yeah.
as they could. And it's
Which-
nice. And there's still that pod, which is
Yeah.
that's another thing. I'll have to do a
Yeah.
little video or something. I got a little
Yes.
trick that I did for mounting. I think it's going to change the game for a lot of people. I highly recommend people do this. But I mounted my Humminbird Helix transducer in that pod, on the bottom of that pod, and I have it low enough so even if I drag it into my truck, there's about a half-inch clearance. I could drag it over anything, and I was going through all kinds of weeds and zero hang-up, zero issues with it. But you do have to be careful when you do mount and stuff like that, like I had in my attack. If you hit something going backwards as you're going forwards, there's something, there's the keel of the kayak to kind of protect it. But if you get something just at the right angle or go over a log or something like that, it can be exposed. And if you do hit that transducer really hard, I've broken a lot of brackets and stuff like that. Like something's going to give if you slam that transducer. So what I did, I'm going to make a little video. This might be a little hard to explain, but at the bottom of the pod, I bolted on like a 3/8 inch, square rectangular piece of cutting board. And then on the transducer bracket, I have another same exact shape piece of 3/8 cutting board. And then in between the two, I use one of those foam pads that you use for drywall sanding, like the drywall pads. And I Gorilla Glued it to both. I sand both of the two. I Gorilla Glue it. So I use the two, pieces of cutting board. I put that pad in between, and I Gorilla Glue it on there. So if you do hit something really hard, it's just going to rip the Gorilla Glue off of the cutting board. And all you have to do is just lift out the pad. I carry Gorilla Glue with me. I put Gorilla Glue on there. I put some tape around it. I wait like 10, 15 minutes. I put it back in, and I'm good to go.
Well, I thought you did it just for a little bit of cushion.
And because it's a sanding pad, it absorbs, right? So if you hit something, it's going to absorb it too. It works great.
So you got like a little cushion, but you've also got breakaway if you need. That's really
exactly
amazing.
It's
now
money.
with that Humminbird, because I have a Helix as well. With the pod and everything, you've got perfect picture with your side scan and everything.
Perfect picture with my side scan.
A lot of people are going to love to hear that. Yeah, because sometimes with kayaks, that's an issue if you don't have the right mount or the right clearance.
Or if you can't get it low enough. I've had that issue with other kayaks, and the way I have it is it's money. I used it all week through. I was going over all kinds of wood and just a shit ton of weeds and stuff like that. I never had to touch it, but if I did hit it, all I'd have to do is just take it out and put some Gorilla Glue and put some tape on it for a little bit outside, for 10 minutes.
Awesome.
It's great.
It's freaking awesome.
It's really great. Jeff Little, actually, me and him were kind of talking about it one day, like trying to figure out a solution for that. And then and then I thought, I'm like, how about a drywall sanding pad? And I was like, yeah, that might work. So it works.
It's cool to have guys like him to go ping stuff off of to kind of think about, because
and he did help me. There was, I'll say
we had him on a couple of weeks ago, and it's just I love picking his brain for all kinds of stuff. We were talking about, all kinds of stuff next. I was like, next time we come back on, we're not going to talk about nothing but smallmouth fishing, because you guys have just got me. You guys have just got me insane wanting to go chase those things this year. So there's going to be a lot of smallie fishing in my life this season. That is for sure. So, all right, hopping over.
I got any more
butterfly questions for a second.
No,
there?
I've got tournament questions now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I, before you get into that, can I say the one issue that I did have with the Bonafide? I just kind of wanted to point out. Maybe somebody has a better solution. But when I mounted the Torqeedo on it, I just put it. I didn't put it on a mount. They made it so that there's a little raised area for the motor in the back for the Torqeedo or Newport. I'm guessing it'll fit just the same. And structurally, it's really strong, so you don't have to like modify it or do anything. But when you put the mount on there and you use the stock steering cables that come with the rudder, you take out the rudder and use those steering cables. The one issue I had was when you hook it up to the triangle, it would start rubbing across, the steering cables would start rubbing across the top of the silver frame a little bit. So I had to raise the triangle up as much as I could, which raised the motor up in order to get it to stop rubbing across the top of that motor frame. The motor was cavitating just a little bit, which worked out okay because I was fishing in so much weeds and stuff like that, that it's probably right where I would have wanted it to be. But if you're in rougher water or you don't want to make any noise, you're going to have to lower it, which is going to rub it across there. So what I did is One Objective makes a couple plates on the sides of the motor that are used for like mounting a power pole or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I just put 2 of the little Yakutech like eyelets up there, and instead of running straight back, they kind of run out to the sides and then in a little bit. So it just gave a little wider base to where it's coming across, and then I could drop it down and then it works fine. But that was the one thing, if people are having issues with putting a Torqeedo on it, and maybe there's another solution I didn't think of, but I was running some issues with that and found a solution, but hopefully that helps some people.
Oh, and you said you're going to shoot a little video on that at some point to kind of share that.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Now that I have it all done, I did already one walkthrough, but I'm gonna do another one now that I have some of the little kinks worked out.
There you go.
Well, yeah, and
it's always we're lucky that guys like you who get out and kind of put them to work early in the season while the rest of us are kind of playing in the ice and all that, where you're getting out and putting them to work and then noticing the little tweaks and adjustments, and can share that as other people maybe start getting their new kayaks in the springtime when they get their tax checks, things like that. And they can learn from guys like you that are experienced at doing this, and it saves a lot of the folks at home a bunch of headache, and trying to learn this the hard way when, you've got access to other guys that really get into rigging and understand this, like Jeff and so forth. So it's good that you and Chad and Gene and others are kind of, helping the guys that may be picking up their first PWR this year, and, maybe saving them some steps and headaches down the road. So yeah, looking forward to those kind of videos.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So before we move on to actual tournament stuff, if a dude had to only pick one bona fide, like, okay, so you've got the PWR, you got the 127 and the RVR. If you only had to have one, okay, like some of us aren't as lucky, some of us are on a budget. If you only had to have one, which one would you?
It's hard work.
Suggest?
It's not luck. He had to.
No. I know. I take that back. You're correct. Which one would you?
I'd say the PWR. I haven't put it in a river yet, so I don't know, but I would think it actually probably turns a little better even than my attack does in the river, just based on a little bit I've been in it. The PWR is extremely versatile. Okay. Like I said, you can go straight out of the box and just paddle it and have something with a rudder, and it gives you the capability to do whatever you want with it. There's so many gear tracks and there's so much capability for storage, but like I said, if you can just go with it just right out of the box, and it's gonna do great for you and perform really well. And I like the seat is extremely comfortable, and the 2 different levels. I will say on the high position, you sit up pretty dang high, which is great for casting, but it got really windy that second day of the BOS. And I was like a little sketched out when I was in that top position, where then I just dropped it. It's so easy it takes like 5 seconds literally to drop it from the high position to the low position. And once I did that, I was like, okay, I'm feeling good. But it was a little tippy when it was
even from the lower position, you were very comfortable then.
Oh, the lower position, I was fine. The high position, it sits up really high. Which is, there's a lot of definite benefits to that. And the one thing that isn't, though, is it's just a little tippier when you do that. So, but the low position actually is where my attack was, where the attack had 2 different positions too, and I would never use the low one, and the attack was super low. And the high position is actually equivalent to where the low position is in the PWR. That makes sense. So
Yep.
That's really cool. I mean, it's
little things.
It's been fun watching everybody. I mean, I have seen friends, Doug King, and I mean several people that I don't think they expected to go want a new kayak this year, and I've seen a lot of people going and picking up PWRs and taking them home. I mean, it's really kind of incredible. And I know Matt's going to get his ass in one of these days when he decides to quit, upgrading his truck and start working on getting a
Priority.
it'll be the number one
motorized.
selling kayak. I don't know if there's statistics for that. I'd be shocked if it wasn't, just because
Well,
of that.
I'm sure they
I know
track
what
it
else.
somewhere.
You'd
From
be
talking to
shocked
Chad,
if it
it's like
isn't.
they can't even keep up with making them. I mean, they are selling
I
them as
bet.
fast as they can get
It's
them made.
for the price, what it's at compared to what it's
Yep.
competing against. It's not even a competition.
Yeah, because I mean the
think.
price for a base model, and plus, like you said earlier, it's the build a boat. You can build it however you want it. You want a big lake, throw an XI3 on the front. You want to play in the rivers or whatever, throw one in the back. If you want both, you can. It's just whatever you want to do. And if you just want to put it in and float in it, it's light enough, and to just be a good creek floating. Just from all the stuff I've seen on it, I mean, I completely understand why everybody's losing their minds to get them.
It's the most versatile kayak that's ever been built.
Well, and literally what you were saying about that tank well, it's huge. It's massive.
I have two black pack, 13 by 16 black packs. The first one sits, I guess, vertical, and then the second one like horizontal. And I could reach from the seat position the way it's designed. That first one sits right up against your back, and it's still just enough clearance to like open up that latch. And I can reach the back one just without even I'm short too. I have really short arms, and I could reach back there into the back one and get everything I need from that back one. And the cool thing is too, I did another video, my Torqeedo battery. I have a bungee on the back of the black pack, which holds my Torqeedo batteries like kind of vertical with the plug ends like on the top there, so they're easy to access. So I can actually get on my knees and lean over, and being on a bungee like that, it holds it up nice and snug, but I can move it and access the to unscrew the power cable and the throttle cable, and I set my extra Torqeedo batteries in my bow. So I've been swapping my Torqeedo batteries without having to get off on the shore, which I did, on my attack. I had 2 Torqeedo batteries, but the way it was positioned, I only had 1 black pack. I couldn't get to it unless I got onto the shore. So I could swap batteries in my seat without having to get out on the shore.
That's ridiculous.
Now, something I just thought of too, because I know you work with Torqeedo, and do you use a rock guard on your motor?
Yeah, I do use a rock guard. Trey, who did well in the tournament, he finished right behind me in 4th. He had a great tournament. He builds that rock guard, which also has a little cutter on it to cut out a weed cutter, which was huge for where I was fishing. A lot of the grass was topped off.
I was watching you go through that, so that's what made me kind of proud. I was watching your Instagram feed, and I was like, he's just cutting through that like it's nothing. So I wondered if there was
the rock guards you need if you're going to be running grass like that. Yeah, and a little bit will get hung up like on against the rock guard, but all I do is just pull it. I just pull it up twice really quick with the rope, and it just clears it down. But I had to do that a lot. I mean, it's really quick. But I was just running through huge grass mats, just blasting through it, lifting it up, clearing it, dropping it down, running for another 30 seconds, lifting it up.
Gotcha.
But it'll still without it or with a bow mount motor. I mean, it's as good as you can get for the type. If you would have seen the grass mats that I was fishing, it's as good as I can get.
I saw him. Saw the gator too.
Yeah,
saw the gator too.
The pad. You saw the pad.
Yeah, where you were in the pads and that big old. You were like, "This is the biggest gator I've ever seen." You
don't even really have to lift it up too much. This is more like milfoil and hydrilla. A lot of it was like about a foot under the surface. In some areas it was topped out, and I just go full speed and just blast through it, and it still go like even when it was topped out, I was still going through it and the prop was moving. It would slow me down a little bit, and then I'd have to lift it just to get some more speed to get the little bit that was on there off of the front of it. But the prop was still, it keeps those weeds off the prop really well.
Man, awesome. That's amazing. So let's jump to the first big tournament of the year. I mean, tell us about, okay, you got your new kayak and you're hitting the water, and we kind of, Harris Chain in Florida, everybody, kind of talks about mythical days that could happen and this and that. And of course, you, Mr. Consistency, me and Jeremy and Matt and a couple others were in our chat, day one. And we're watching Hernandez and Wyatt putting up just monster days. And Matt's all, there's Russ.
Russ sitting there with 100 inches. And
we were like, yeah, but I was like, man, he's a few fish back. And Matt's all, 2-day tournament. You know how it goes.
Well, so that's one of the questions I have. So after that day one with those huge numbers, because 113 inches, like catching 24.5-inch fish and all that stuff.
The dude caught a 24 at the end of the day.
The amount of big
I pointed
fish.
This out. I said there was one point where we're looking at his leaderboard before he caught the big one. I was like, every one of his fish is my catch PB in order. My biggest on a board. My biggest on a board is 21, and he was like 21 and a quarter, 20. And they just then he goes and catches a 24 at the end of the. I'm like,
both of those guys, the guy first place and Wyatt. And I don't knew the first guy in first place. I didn't.
Hunter Hernandez was the guy who led day one.
Hernandez.
Both from North Carolina.
Yeah, so I think they're both good friends, from my understanding. I got to meet Wyatt at the KBF championship, their Trail Series championship last year. Super, super nice guy. He was in the 10 with me.
The AOY champion.
Talk with him. Yeah, you got the AOY champ, and he. So the two of them, from what I heard, were fishing together in the same general area. And actually, if you looked at, so one guy had 114, other guy had 100. Wyatt had 107 and change,
something
I believe. 113 and 107.
113 and then 110. Yeah, at the end of the day one.
So I looked. If you look at their pictures, or Hunter Hernandez there, if you look at the pictures of their fish, his graph was right there. And I zoomed in because I was curious, because there was beds up too. The guy who caught the 24 3/4, he got it on. He was fishing the same area as me. And I talked to him right after he caught it. He was like still freaking out. A guy from Delaware, forget his name. But he caught that 24 3/4, like a 12-pounder, or 25 3/4. It was the big fish of the tournament. 25 3/4. It was like a 12-pounder, maybe just under. And he said he caught it on a bed, and there was, he said he saw it the day before, and he spent the first hour of the morning just pitching a rage craw. I knew right where the bed was, and he saw it swirl. I'm like, God, you spent an hour on a fish on a bed that you couldn't even see? And he's like, well, every once in a while I'd see it swirl. So I was like, okay, so that was a giant. And then those Jim Orr also caught a giant, like a 24.5 one, over 10 pounds. And Hunter Hernandez, that big one he got at the end, was extremely fat. That thing, there was 3 fish in the tournament on that first day that were over 10 pounds. And like I said, the full moon, that was Saturday. The full moon was Thursday night, and a bunch of fish moved up on beds. I was looking for beds during pre-fish, and I only found one area that had some males, about 6 or 7 of them. And I went there the first day of the tournament, and I saw 2 fish over 8 pounds in that little area. And I saw 4 of them over 8 that day. A couple of them might have been 10s or 11s. And but the 2 that were around 8 pounds, I messed with 2 around 8. Or actually, I messed with 1 around 8 and 1 around 6, and the other one was around 8. Was all of them were skittish. I spent on the one that was 6 pounds and one that was 8 plus. I spent about 20 to 30 minutes on that first day on each of those beds. I couldn't even get the males interested. I wasted a lot of time. It was hard it was distracting, to say the least. But I had a little bit of a flipping bite in the morning. I got a few. The wind slicked off. The water got a little clearer in the area that I was fishing. And that's what I did the whole tournament. I was flipping, except for those couple times I got distracted by those bed fish. And I realized
it seemed like everybody we heard was throwing a jackhammer or moving baits, but it seemed like those who came out at the top really at the end,
all 3 guys on the top,
in some way.
All 3 guys were flipping. Flipping bite was really good. But I got a few in the morning. I made some bad decisions that first day. The morning bite, like I said, I got a few flipping, and then the water, once the sun came up, the water, I noticed, I'm like, gosh, this water's like a lot clearer. And there was no wind, and I could just see the bottom everywhere. And I was like, I gotta do something else. So I went into this canal that had a little dirtier water where I saw the beds, and there was like 3 other guys in that canal. And then I saw those bedfish, and then I got distracted with that. And then the wind finally kicked up, but it was at a different direction that it was going during pre-fish. So then I knew I needed that wind for that flip and bite to happen. So I went to another area near there where I didn't have that much luck really practicing, but it was a different wind direction. So I was like, I need a bank where the wind's blowing into the bank and kind of, dirtying up the water, giving it a little. I just needed some wind, I thought, for that flip and bite. And finally, that last hour and a half or so, I made the right move, and I got into them enough to kind of salvage the day. I wasn't doing good in the middle of the day. I lost two. That's like a 20 and a 21. Had like a 21 jump off right before I could get my hands on it. And the other one actually was in that canal. I was looking for beds, and I was pitching around. I felt dink dink like that, Mike, and I was just about to set the hook, and then I literally saw it right underneath me, like a 4 or 5 pounder, spit it out right before it saw me, so it spit it out. I was right on top of it. I was like, oh shit, I should have had that one too. But anyway, the day, I don't want to make excuses. Like things like that always happen. But yeah, anyways, the first day was, I salvaged a day at the end. I started getting it together, got in a good groove. And I think it was in 8th place, like 92 and a half. Second day, the wind was blowing hard.
Hang on.
And
I got a question for you.
Sure.
So after seeing that on day one, knowing the conditions and all of that, so what was your mindset that night going into day 2? Because what I said in the chat was, okay, he's consistent. We've not really heard about these guys other than Wyatt doing really good at Gunnersville. They're not as, like, if they were consistent like you, we would know who they are. Like, so
Wyatt,
they had days.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
Carl Jockinson was up there too. He was a poor.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
but I'm saying
Carl out there paddling around.
Yeah.
No, he was pedaling. He had a Hobie. He was pedaling.
So
okay, yeah.
You're sitting
that's
there,
right. Yeah, he did have a pedal
you're
drive.
in a really good spot.
Got a motor installed now.
Yeah,
that if you
he's
do
gonna
the
get a
same
motor now.
day 2, you got a shot at winning, right? Well,
yeah, I knew. I didn't
So-
know. I thought I was shooting for 4th place when I saw those. I thought.
So that was your
third place
mindset, was
best.
like, okay, I could
If
get
I
in
can
the top
get third,
5.
they had such a big lead. I'm like, all right, it's possible that one of these guys is going to stumble enough for me to catch up. But the fact that top 2 only got 2 fish each was pretty shot. Like that was hard to expect. That was brutal for them, I'm sure.
During the day, do you kind of watch the leaderboards? Do you think maybe they're holding fish to the end, or do you just go fish?
Sometimes. I mean, I just go fish, but I want to know. I don't know. You can learn stuff from looking at the leaderboards, and you kind of know people that are around you too, and know what they're doing.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, you pay attention if somebody's putting up big numbers and they're in your area.
Yeah,
they're
some of my friends, I know kind of what their type of stuff they're fishing and stuff too. Whether it's they're bed fishing or they're so I kind of pay attention just to get an idea.
You fish against Christine
what's going
enough,
on.
that if she's putting up numbers, you probably know how she's doing it.
Probably, yeah. Or my buddy Adam, I know he was chasing. I knew a few of my friends had some. Big. Christine had some giants on beds, and so did Adam. And that first day, after I messed with those first 2 that I said that were on beds that I messed with for a little bit, I saw 2 other fish towards the end of the day when I started getting on that good flip and bite again. I saw 2 other ones that they were definitely over 8. They could have easily been like 10s or 11s probably. But as soon as I rolled up on them, I already saw if they were like locked, if I rolled up on them and they just stayed there, then I would have given them the time of day. But they kind of wandered off. I sat there for a second and I just looked at them for about less than a minute, and I was like, I'm not falling for that again. So I just let them be, and I marked them though. I was like, maybe I'll come back and get a cast from a long way like the next day, and I did do that and didn't get either of them. But so So yeah. So next day the wind was blowing. I'm like, the wind's blowing and I'm getting them flipping. I'm not gonna put that rod down. And I had one rod in my hand the whole day. I didn't even pick up another rod. Just flipping. It was the
So for you, the
iRods.
conditions probably were a little more what you were looking for, wasn't it? Because then you're a little more confident.
Yeah,
And
there was
it's like my day
clouds.
yesterday was pretty good, but I can do even better today, knowing what had to happen.
The first day I could have done, yeah, if I could have gone back, easier said than done. But I knew that I made some mistakes that first day, where I should have just paid it. Like I should have just followed the wind better, and yeah, I could have done better if I moved that last bank that I fished the last hour and a half. If I would have moved there earlier, which in the back of my head, I was like, I should be over there. I should be over there. And I just took me too long to get over there. And when I did finally get there, I was like, I knew it. But I should have got there earlier. But it's all right. Then the next day, the wind was blowing. It shifted from a south wind to a west wind, which was really good because the best stuff that I had was a west wind was blowing into. Which is a lot of the stuff I fished that very first day for that first hour in the morning on the first day, but then it got slick calm, and then all that stuff I couldn't really fish when it got slick calm like that. Even when the wind did pick up, it wasn't enough. Anyway, so the wind blew out of the west, and I picked it apart really well, all the little areas and stuff. In that area, the second day. I was doing good. I had over had over 100 bites, bro. I think flipping on the second day. So probably, yeah, it was a lot. So if the wind, it wasn't necessarily like banks where the wind was blowing right into, but it was so windy that if you had areas where if like the bank's going like this, the bank's go if you're facing into the wind. And you have a bank of reeds or something like that. It was all the little points that were sticking out, not a bank where it's blowing straight into it, but I'd have to have banks where I was, facing, where I was motoring along the bank into the wind, but all the little points that any ambush point that they were in, it was every single spot pretty much like that. And I wouldn't even have to, like in practice and the first day with less wind, I had to pitch it way back up into the reeds and stuff. But with the wind blowing like it was, I wouldn't even have to get it in it. I just cast it in front of it and they'd hit it on the fall like 95% of the time. And I was using a 3/4 ounce.
Are you constantly moving when you're doing that, or do you stop and like use your anchor wizard and
no,
stop and like
no. No, I'm just trying to motor really slow, and sometimes.
So you just set your motor speed and then use your feet to guide where you want to go, and just keep on going.
Yeah, and keep moving and pitch every 5 feet. Sometimes I'd skip little areas, or go some areas I go a little slower if I felt like they should be there. In some areas I go, I'd slow down the areas where if I was confident there'd be one. In some areas I could tell it's like lower percentage, so I'd maybe make my casts every 10, 15 feet or 20 feet instead of every 3 feet or 5 feet or something. But yeah, on that second day I had over 100 bites, but a lot of little ones, I don't think I got anything under 12 inches, or maybe nothing under 12, but a lot of like 12 to 15 inches. And I was losing a lot of fish. It was probably because of that heavy weight, like a 3/4 ounce. It was a lot of times that heavy weight when you're flipping, they'll get it good, but they'll hit it, that weight will hit the top of their mouth and pop their mouth open before the hook can get to it. I probably only landed like 45 or so.
So are you throwing like a heavy punching type, a Texas rig?
Yeah, it's like a Texas rig, just a beaver on a Texas rig.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people love those like baby D or the D bombs and. Okay, I'll ask. What's your favorite plastic of choice when it comes to those?
It just depends. I like the Menace I was using the Menace on the first day a good amount towards the end there. But then on the second day it was colder too. I feel like I like the Menace or something with action more when it's really warm. And that second day it got cold. It seemed like they were hitting the beaver style bait a little better. Or I mean, I
I didn't
started
know if
off
you had
with
like
it.
a soft plastics, company that you like to represent, or
No, I don't want to sign on with any kind of lure company because then
yep, you want
gotta
the freedom to throw whatever you want, don't you?
yeah. I make
So
a lot of my own lures too.
did you
Oh, that's
peg
even
that
better.
weight, or was
Yeah,
it free?
always,
Yeah.
always
Okay.
pegged it.
So it was
Yeah.
pegged, and yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were pretty obvious where they were positioned. The banks where the wind was blowing straight into it. There was some fish there too, but it was really hard to. The wind was blowing so hard that it was hard to position to fish that bank. So you'd have to get ahead of it, and the wind would want to blow you like right into it. So it's almost easier to find the areas where you can go straight into the wind and either pitch off to your right or left and just pick those little points. And I got no bites like way back up. Made a lot of casts like back up into the stuff too. And they weren't on those. They weren't up in it. And pre-fishing, that's what I had to do. I was pitching it way back up over a bunch of stuff and in thick stuff. And they'd come out. It's pretty obvious where they were sitting. I just pitched like a foot from the cover, and they'd come out and get it.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
So what size braid were you throwing?
I was throwing braid. I had 4 flipping rods. I had 2 with braid and 2 with fluorocarbon. I was throwing 20-pound fluorocarbon. When I was throwing the day before, I was throwing the Menace, and that was with 50-pound braid. I either use 50-pound braid or 20-pound fluorocarbon. Sometimes I'll use, if I'm punching really heavy stuff, I'll use 65-pound braid. If I'm like way back up in stuff and pitch it like, punching through with like a 1.5 ounce weight or something, I'll use 65.
All right, cool. Now, did I hear them? Maybe I understood it or not, but did they expand the number of places to who qualifies into the TOC? Did you?
I think if it hits 140 or 150, then they do 4 spots.
Oh, okay. So you're already auto qualify for the TOC then.
Yeah, qualified.
Well, congratulations.
So with that,
Thanks.
does that change your like tournament or what tournaments you fish throughout the season? Was there, are there like other events that you'd be like, maybe I'll go fish this instead of something that may have been on the same day? Maybe like, the one that Drew Gregory and them are kicking off or stuff like that. I mean, does it change now that you're already qualified, or do you just still go hammer them all
Not
just
right
because
now, not this early. Might get to a point like towards the end of the season if I don't, if there's an event that's far away and I'm not in the Angler of the Year race, then I might just skip it if I'm not in the AOI race. And since I'm already qualified, something like that could happen. But I don't
but knowing Rus Snyders, AOI is always a target.
Not always. Not last year for me. It wasn't. I was too far down.
No. So what's your next tournament you got coming up?
I'm doing Rayburn. I'm leaving Monday.
Okay, so Rayburn after that. Doing the I already know you're qualified for the Bassmaster, kayak championship. That'll be coming up before too long, it seems like too. But you just gonna hit a little hodgepodge of all the tournament trails this year, or any focuses or anything new? I mean, are you
I'm gonna hit Drews. I'm gonna at least do a couple of Drews. I'm gonna fish KBF. I'm gonna fish Bassmaster, and I'm gonna fish as many as I can.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get up to one of Drew's at the Susky, I think, because I've never been there, and like I told you, I'm just gonna be nuts this year.
I'm gonna be there for that.
And I think he said that they're gonna have one at Dale Hollow, which is not too far from us here in Indiana.
Who is
Drew? Is that? I thought there was. I thought he was having an event that was like close to Indiana, but I might be wrong on which one it is. I'll have to go look.
I don't know. It's not Dale Hollow. I don't think.
May not be. Where was it? It was somewhere close-ish to Indiana, but
there's a couple that I didn't recognize. I never, a couple of places I'd never heard of, but he says they're awesome. He does a lot of research, and he knows so many great waterways around here, and a lot of them are focused more on river fishing, or at least have the option of doing both. So I doubt Dale Hollow. It doesn't seem like it would be
okay. There was some other. I have to go back and look. There was something that was within pretty close range. I was thinking it was in Kentucky or maybe Tennessee, but it was a smallie something or another. So I'll have to.
Oh,
go look
Shoaly
back.
Palooza, Flint River,
Yeah, maybe.
Georgia. That one's
Yep.
gonna be sweet. That'll be fun. KBF went there. They had to cancel it, I think, or something because of the weather, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah, but I practiced there for it. It's like Flint River, the Okmulgee, and the Chattahoochee for shoal bass. It's called
Okay.
Shoaly Palooza. I'm gonna
Yep.
do my best to make that one. I thought, yeah, it might have conflicted with something, but I'm planning on going to that. Pretty sure.
Yeah,
Right, so
after talking to Josh Shrenko about the Susquehanna and all that, I was like, I got to go do that. So that's going to be like my dream shot this year.
I
So-
love that place.
this is actually a dumb question because I know what your answer is going to be. So on a fishery, if you have the choice of fishing main lake or a river, which are you choosing?
Oh, river, yeah.
we know that answer.
Well, as long as the river, I mean, as long as it can compete. Sometimes the rivers can't compete with the lake, and vice versa. Wherever the winning fish are going to be is where I'm going to try to fish.
Well, then how do you find that out? How do you figure that out?
Practice, yeah. Just go
Practice.
out and I'm gonna. If there's an area where I can fish a river, I'm gonna definitely give it the old
river,
college try. But I'm gonna,
And if you're not
sometimes
catching the quality, then you
yeah,
come
there's
about
plenty of times where the rivers can't compete with the lakes. Not,
Yep.
say 25% of the time you run into that situation where you just know like, oh, it's a lake deal.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I knew I wanted to get you on and talk about smallie fishing at the end of this podcast, but I know we've been here like for over an hour already, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I want to get some time with you. Maybe if you get between the tournaments and have a couple of minutes someday where we get you back on another live when we're up here in a little warmer weather and all this too, to kind of pick your brains a little bit about river and chasing smallies and so forth, because I really, really want to learn more and do more this year too, and love to get on the water with you one of these days, maybe before or after an event, just to spend some time fishing with you and maybe learn a little bit. And I'll come down and pay for guide services just because I still love supporting what you guys do, and just get out and learn, because like I said, I'm going to be obsessed with chasing smallies this year.
It's a lot of fun. The Susquehanna is. I've definitely got to make it to that.
I got my PB at the end of the year this year, and in 19 and a half. And now I'm on that quest for a 20. So
cool.
I'm gonna be going crazy this year chasing after him too. But I wanted to thank you again for joining us tonight, talking about your new partnership with Bonafide and your excellent performance. And of course, we're big fans. I mean, we've been following you ever since we met you at the NC a couple years ago and got to know you. And it seems like we can be good luck charms at time too, because you be there and you win, and then we go to the classic and you win, and it's been a real pleasure getting to know you and follow you. As us old farts as fans just love following your adventures and everything you do. You're just the most down to earth person that we know. You're a great representative of the sport, and that's what we love, hanging out and talking to guys like you too. But we appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you for allowing me the opportunity to chat with you guys. I really enjoyed it, and appreciate just give me an opportunity to talk about my different sponsors and products that I use, and I'm sure they appreciate it too.
Oh yeah. I made them watch when you won your first 10, because they didn't know who you were, and I'm like, oh man, Rus Snyders, he's in this. Holy crap, he went down to Florida and blah blah blah. Made them watch the YouTube video that Chad put out on it, and then when we met you,
he did a good job on the first one from the first 10. Yeah.
For you,
because
he was like,
good job on the video. I like that one.
This guy, don't even know who he is. He qualifies, and he comes down here to a lake he's never been ever, and smacks him. Right. Well, now you've been doing that for years. It's Chad said it, and it's not luck. It is work, and it is what it is. But no,
in that video that Jeff did with you at the NC that year. It just we were like, oh, this guy is just the bomb. I mean, just watching you do what you do.
Yeah. In practice.
It was incredible just being able to capture it all. I was like, I want to make videos like that, because people can really see what it is we truly enjoy. I mean, they don't realize maybe when they're watching that you're out here fishing in a big championship and this and that, and we're just watching a dude smoking smallies just left and right, and it was incredible.
I appreciate all the time
talking about it, and I'm never going to shut up.
And Jeff, man, they do so much for the just to promote kayak fishing and share,
Yep.
you know, experiences with, yeah, just having me to have something like that to kind of look back on. Those are just big moments in my life and very memorable for them. So for them to take the time to do all the filming and editing, I know how much work goes into doing all that. So I'm really grateful for everything they have done for me and just done for the sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we are blessed to have such a great community in this sport that we all
Truly.
love.
Totally,
And
yeah.
again, we love talking to guys like you to help us encourage other people to get out and do the exact same thing. Because if we can do it, you can go catch some fish, they can do it too. But with that, we're going to
Totally.
let you go for the night. And,
I got one more
appreciate
thing,
you.
JT, real quick. Russ, do you have any links for people to be able to hire you as a guide, or you got a website or anything you
Just
want to throw
message
out?
me on Instagram or Facebook. I have a website, but it was originally when I set up my website, is before I got into kayak fishing, and I actually had these like pontoon boats or kick boats. So I built this website. It was kickfishing.com, and
Yep.
all the structures. I'm gonna have to redo the name, and I still use it. There's times where those kick boats are the best thing to use, actually, for the really small creeks and stuff, small rivers and creeks and stuff. Those things are legit. I think they're the best option as far as that kind of fishing for the really, really skinny water stuff. But yeah, now everything I'm involved with in kayak fishing, I'm gonna have to restructure that a little bit. But there is a website there that describes some of the bodies of water and the different places that I fish around here. So it's kickedfishing.com, or just go to my Instagram or Facebook and you'll just give me a message.
Cool.
And real quick, shout out your sponsors because
Yep.
they give you love and you obviously use them because they do what you need them to do.
Totally. But yeah, Bonafide Kayaks, just we've talked a lot about them already today. Torpedo Motors, which we've talked a lot about. Dakota Lithium, talked a little bit about them and all the. I got a 54 amp hour, 46 amp hour, and then in the pod, actually, my little pod right in front of me on the PWR, I have a 23 amp hour that fits in there nice. And I put a through hole little kit for a GoPro mount on that in front of me,
Okay.
and the 23 amp hours have like the USB plug in, so it's great for that. And I have one of those in my very back, my second black pack that has a little through hole thing, so that battery stays nice and dry, and just plug it in and plug straight into my camera that I have on a Yak Attack. It's another sponsor of mine. Talked a little bit about them and the black packs. They make camera mounts, all sorts of other stuff as well. And iRod fishing, 775 was in my hand all day on that second day, especially. Music City Outdoors, a local kayak shop here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is working on carrying Bonafide. They have, I think, just about every other kayak brand available. But hopefully soon here, they're working on getting Bonafides in as well. Catch Outdoors. They obviously make the catch board as well as a number of other great products, and One Objective Fishing, which is I've been using a lot of their aftermarket products that they've developed for the PWR, and a lot of that stuff is really come in handy. So I'm grateful for them.
All right. Well, we're going to let you get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in and following along. As always, get outside when you can and make some memories, one cast at a time.